Hey guys, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Adam here. I am fine-tuning some, I'm making some fine-tuning adjustments here to the orbit of our sun skimming probe, gathering some science while we're out here. Might as well beam that back down to Kerbin. Basically, this takes forever, so I just leave the game running with MechJeb doing this burn, because this engine is not very efficient with the amount of heat that I can actually provide for it. So it takes a little while to get that done. Alright, so back on Kerbin here, we are launching another a series of rovers that have failed to actually land on Moho at this point. So we're going to send this with the transit vehicle. I'm hoping that it will have enough Delta V when it arrives that it will be able to safely land. I have no idea though, and it's proving to be really hard to land a rover on Moho. I've already crashed it one in this series, I think, into Moho. It's kind of weird because in my previous series I actually did land something and it didn't seem that bad. I don't think anything really changed. But as I've been doing a lot of the time here, we're going to go ahead and dock using the actual transit vehicle because it just seems to be easier. I don't have to include a bunch of heavy RCS tanks and stuff on the launch stage if I use this to do that. So go ahead and just flip her around and back it up. And so this is actually designed in such a way that most of this is not coming with us to Moho. There's a smaller section in here that actually is the part that's going to be doing the mission, and this part actually does have a little bit of RCS, so I'm going to flip it around and we're actually going to do the docking. I lied. This is post commentary like most things have been lately, and I lied. Going to do the docking this way. It's very dark, can't see much here. Alright, so as we're coming in here, you can kind of get a look at the rover and the sky crane. It's not that big. It's basically designed to ditch that docking port on its way down so that we hopefully won't leave too much debris in orbit. But this thing's all joined up, good to go, so it's just a matter of deorbiting the booster stage, and we'll be setting a course pretty soon for Moho with this. And the sun's coming up just in time for me to be done docking. That's nice. Alright, well, from my understanding, the window to Moho is somewhat of a loose thing. So we're going to actually leave right now for Moho. I am hoping this will work out. I don't really know. But I got a good encounter. It's only costing about 2200 Delta V. So that seems alright to me. Alright, so we are launching another in the series of missions with the impactor probes that I used in a previous episode. These are actually pretty much identical. They, I think I fixed the problem where the probe had the detector inside of a battery and it was kind of hard to click on. But other than that, they're basically the same. Now, these are going to Minmus. Minmus is actually a really good candidate to get science from because it's not hard to move around on. It's not far away. It has a lot of biomes, and it is relatively good science multiplier still. So we're only launching 3. I'm not gonna be all fancy and launch to the poles and all that stuff this time. This is a quick and dirty, let's get a bunch of science kind of mission. So they wobble like crazy because they're not really they're strutted to each other, but they're not really strutted to anything apparently further down. But the MechJeb seems to be able to compensate for the crazy stuff going on. And already we're out here at Minmus, and what we're gonna do is enter orbit. I'm gonna put one down at like 0 degrees at 120 and 240, and then we'll have them in thirds around the planet or the moon in this instance. So I don't think there's a lot of science that the other instruments on board of this are really going to be able to gather, because I have a good amount of stuff already, but whatever. And I did fix the battery issue. That's another thing that I fixed. These didn't have... I guess that was a problem earlier. Never mind. I was going to say, I think I added more batteries and stuff so that they have enough power to land properly and all that stuff. But basically, we're just, at this point, making sure we're controlling from the right place. Spinning because it kind of looks cool. Making sure we get everything deployed that needs to be deployed. Especially the antenna, so we don't just undock and don't have a clue where we're going. And separate. I don't know, it just makes it more graceful with it spinning. So go ahead and activate the engines, and we will have MechJeb's landing guidance actually deal with this. I didn't really think this part through, where we're going to be drifting like really slowly away, and it's going to take forever. So I just kind of angled the engine, hopefully far enough away that we didn't damage anything. Just give it a gentle little nudge, and then we can give it a bigger nudge here in a second. Make sure we get clear. So I'm going to pull up the landing guidance at this point, and just for the sake of argument, we're just going to zero everything out and have this be the first probe. And this happens to be where this probe ended up setting down. It's one of the flat areas on Minmus. Minmus is kind of interesting to me just because I haven't explored it nearly as much as the moon or the Mun. But everything kind of looks the same to a large degree also, so it's kind of annoying. But I guess you could say the same thing about the Mun, but the Mun is just more interesting, I guess, because it looks enough like the real moon that it's cool. So this thing's just gonna do its little landing nonsense. Takes quite a long time to actually get down because as you can see here, we're only going like 5 meters per second, and gravity takes a long time to actually pull you anywhere around here. So pretty much just gotta chill and wait for stuff to happen. Remember how I said I fixed that problem with the sensor being inside the battery? I lied. I think I fixed it, but I launched the wrong version of the craft. So yeah, basically I still have to like kind of look inside of the battery and right click on it and stuff. So that's fun, but only have to do that a couple times, not a huge deal. And then these things will be destroyed anyway, so whatever. I'm not going to be sending these exact ones to other planets. I'm going to have to modify them. But there we go. Touchdown. Go ahead and get all the instruments activated. See if there is any other science that can be gathered from this. And we'll figure out where the next one's going. So, it looks like a little hillier for this second one here. And this is at 120 degrees east. And it's a little bit darker. We're like right on the edge of this mountain range here. It's not too far from a flatter area, but it looks to me, especially in the lower gravity and the lightweightness of these probes, that this should be just fine. So I wasn't too worried about the probe tipping over or anything like that. And see, totally fine. Although these are from that whatever parts pack, the IAS parts pack. And these legs are a little bit on the wobbly side too. And finally, this is the third probe touching down in another hilly, mountainy region here. But we'll have all three probes down in a second here. This looks like it's about as much of an angle, maybe even a little bit less as the other one, so it should be fine. And with all of our probes in place, we can get ready to crash something into the planet and get science, my favorite kind of science, crashy science. So here is our probe. I pretty much just used a lot of fuel and had it fall straight down just for really no reason. But we have the impactors recorded the impact. Well, not the impactors, the impact sensors recorded the impact. So now I get to peek inside the battery in a ridiculous fashion and try to find which one actually contains the accelerometer, which is always fun. But there we go. Collect our data. And that's a lot of science. 875 science. So beam that back. Takes a little while to beam back, but it is sure worth it. I hope I have enough electricity. It ends up getting transmitted eventually because we are in the sun. But yeah, that sure does take an awful lot of electricity to do. But at any rate, gonna let this do its transmitting and move on. Alright, so the time has come to spend our newly gotten science. And pretty much as a rule, I'm keeping things in the same price point. So we're looking to spend 1,000 science on something. I don't even remember if there was anything more expensive than that was available right here. But it's pretty much like a toss-up between the computer core and some more rocket parts, some big rocket parts. But in the end, I decided to go with the big rocket parts because, well, big rocket parts are nice and we need to get everything anyway, so I just picked something. So I'm not really going to be doing a hell of a lot of updating on the progress of the kethane mining unless something happens with it, as in this case. So I've been running a few missions back and forth, and like I've said earlier, these yellow legs from the IAS pack or whatever I don't know if it's a weight thing. It seems to be that they're clipping into something. They're behaving like they're clipping into stuff. I'm sure it's a combination of weight and the fact that they're clipping into something. But when we touch down here, you see that leg on the right there near my mouse cursor kind of clips into the ground and starts this whole thing doing a crazy physics dance of magicalness. And basically things get a little bit funky from here on out. So I decided to collapse the leg, hoping that that would, you know, get it out of the ground and calm things down, which it seems to have. And then other legs start acting kind of funny, but it's not so bad. I thought about doing the time warp freeze thing, but then I kind of figured that that might make things even worse. So I just redeployed the leg, and yeah, see that engine move there too? I think it's actually, like, I think the hitbox is actually colliding with the engine, even though it's not really touching the engine, which is kind of weird. So obviously a redesign is in order for this thing. So I got it to settle down enough that I could deploy the everything. I locked the suspension thing. The suspension might be the problem, but as you'll see in a minute, the suspension was not the issue. But I did get the thing settled down enough that we could do the mining. Alright, so at this point, I just started recording because I had stopped recording just to do the mining. As you can probably see there, we have like about a third of a tank of kethane, but something happened. Something decided to blow up. The ship's doing crazy dances. At this point, it's pretty much unrecoverable. I'm trying to pull the drills in and see if that will stop, but it's getting this crazy like oscillation that seemed to have been building, and it's pretty much a lost cause. I don't really understand this because it had worked a couple of times, and like I said, it really does look like it's colliding with the engine. And now oh, there it goes. So the thing tipped over. It's all busted and stuff. Engine's falling off. Debris everywhere. So pretty much a lost cause. So I decided I was gonna fire up the engines just to see if I could destroy more stuff, because you know, it's kind of fun, and also I wanted to not leave too much debris around if at all possible. And of course, since it only has two engines, it flies a little bit funny, but it's doing all right. You know, now it's down to one, so that's even better. Got a little bit of a spin going here, but fortunately, you know, there's just stuff flying off left and right here. So we'll probably end up sending a mission down just to evacuate the fuel from this at some point, if necessary. I mainly wanted to get it away from my main landing site here, because I'm going to be sending down another one of these. It's too bad those rocks aren't real. I'm going to be sending down another one of these, an improved version, and I just kind of wanted the debris to be a little bit farther away. Hopefully I could get it 2 or 3 kilometers away so that it won't interfere too much with my landings, because there's actually a lot of parts here, and we managed to break quite a few of the parts anyway. So down to no engines now, and kind of like the light spinning around. It's kind of fun. It's a good thing this thing's unmanned, or I have to send somebody pretty quick to come down here. But oh, more stuff blew up. But fortunately, like I said, it's unmanned, so we don't really need to worry too much. I don't think there's going to be much fuel to recover anyway, but I might want to send some guys down if we're in the area just to check out debris. I always like wrecked spaceships somehow. I like to leave the debris turned up all the way. It's kind of fun having wrecked stuff. So what I was doing there is just making sure before I lose contact with this thing, I wanted to switch it over to debris just so it wouldn't show up in my ship list, because it is debris now. And yeah, it just kind of keeps going for just a little bit longer here, settles down, and it doesn't have any nuclear reactor or anything, so it's going to run out of power for those lights and everything at some point here. It's kind of amazing that the antenna didn't get busted off. I don't remember where I put it exactly, but there she will stay. Alright, so we're launching a newer version of my asteroid recovery craft. There's an asteroid that I've been tracking for a while, which I kind of, like, this is post-commentary again, so I'll be upfront with you. Kind of underestimated, or as our former president would say, I misunderestimated the size of it by quite a bit, which, incidentally, I think misunderestimated is a fantastic word. But it really, you know, it sums up what happened here pretty well. Anyway, this is kind of modified. It has some fancy engine, you know, not fairings, engine mount points on it and stuff. It's just a little bit more compact. But basically, I did not really know how big this asteroid was going to be. I knew it was one of the big ones. I think it's Class E is the big one. I knew it was a big one. It's on a collision course with Kerbal, and I was hoping to just kind of nudge it a little bit. You can see here we're working on getting into this orbit here that is on the same plane as this asteroid is going to be coming in on. Just trying to set up an encounter before it actually hits the planet. But the general plan of this mission was we were going to go ahead and intercept it while it was still kind of far out and just kind of nudge it. Give it a little bit of a nudge. Hopefully, mostly do aero braking with an asteroid, which is probably not the safest thing to do in real life. But, you know, it's a game. I don't care. So, anyway, we're done with that booster stage there. So this is just the craft as it is going to be. And unfortunately, I do not have any power plants up here to make thermal power or anything like that yet. So pretty much nuclear engines are our best bet still. And this is where the first sign of trouble really came in. We're still really far out. The distance object mod, of course, is on, so we can see a big dot here, and that dot seems pretty big. I think the distant objects mod actually does kind of scale the dot depending on how big the thing is the thing that you're coming in on is. And when we get into physics range here, I was in for quite a shock because I didn't look on Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, you know, the wiki for this game or anything, to look up how big these asteroids actually are. And actually at this range it's kind of dark. I can't quite see it. I'm looking at my monitor over here trying to squint and stuff. Yeah, you can see that thing's pretty far away and it looks kind of big. So that was my first worrying moment. I was like, oh crap, we're gonna need a bigger ship. And it only got more true as I closed in here. So we got our zeroed out relative velocity here, so we're going to try to close in on the thing. And this is where another amusing incident ended up occurring here. So we're closing in. MechJeb is like, oh, I'll totally slow down in time. But what MechJeb didn't account for was the fact that this thing's ginormous. So I had to kind of slide over here to the side. And yeah, that was a little bit of a scary moment. Almost had a collision, but we avoided the collision, came in for a docking, and this thing is gigantic. How much would I love to capture this thing and set up a base on this? Look at the mass move over when we dock. So yeah, this thing is huge, and I think it's the biggest class of asteroid in the game. It's kind of ridiculous, and I'm trying to basically just, it doesn't need a lot, like a couple degrees would probably do it, but time's kind of running short. Amazingly, the ridiculously overpowered torque on these capsules and the SAS module can actually rotate this huge thing. So physics, there you go. Makes a lot of sense. But I ended up using RCS2 to just try to get it on course. I tried to adjust the center of mass with the instrumentation here, but I kept running into a problem where my center of mass was still off, and the thing just kept rotating and rotating and rotating. And really, this is going to be an educational thing for the future, because I would like to capture one of these. Just not exactly sure how I'm going to end up doing it, because it's just like, I mean, even with bigger engines, like, I'm barely doing anything. You'd have to get so far out, like into interplanetary space, and make the adjustments on these things probably. So the technology to do that reliably with fuel enough to move something like this is probably a ways away still from my space program. But for now, the ant continues to try to push here, and I had to do a lot of manual adjusting. It got worse as the fuel levels went down on the ship too, in terms of actually trying to hold it on the marker here. But we're not even making that much of a difference there. You can see our apoapsis is kind of bouncing around a lot, but we've got so much, like negative 345 kilometers of stuff to make up for our periapsis, so we're already halfway done with the fuel. We've made up another 50,000 by now, but fuel is about down to 1/5 probably here. So it was pretty clear that this was not going to work, but at least we were going to get a fun ride in, I guess. And with fuel depleted here, the thing just ended up spinning, so I didn't even end up carrying. So here we go on a collision course now. I didn't really think about this part. I was like, oh, it's gonna, like, I've seen videos of these things landing on the surface because apparently they're indestructible, but they are not indestructible, as it would turn out, to deadly re-entry, which I didn't know. So I thought I was just going to enjoy a nice little crash landing. We were going to get to follow it, which was at least kind of cool, with the probe still attached here. So I was like, whatever, we'll just head on through the atmosphere and actually see what happens here. And I was a little bit concerned because for some stupid reason it decided to put the ship facing down, and I knew the ship was going to end up burning up. So I was a little bit concerned about, I guess it wouldn't matter. It'd still just be, I don't know if these are classified as debris or what exactly. Like, can I still track it? I don't know, but it's pretty. And at this point we are falling like a rock, which it is, so that's appropriate, I guess. We're coming in at an incredibly steep angle, so definitely not going to be slowing this puppy down. I don't know how much resistance to heat it actually has, like if I'd come in at a shallower angle, if it would have survived or not, but the shock heating was definitely way too much. This would have been a horrific event on Kerbal. Like, the explosion in the upper atmosphere would have been like a nuke going off, I'm sure, and a lot of debris would have rained down. So there goes all the parts of the ship, and I was like, oh, well, we'll just watch. Oh, boom, it's gone. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that today. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode.